Honored guests, please welcome to the stage the 12th President of the University of Southern California, Carol Folt.
Hello, everyone. Anti-Semitism is one of the oldest forms of hate. And there is really no greater mission for a university than to educate and to open the hearts and minds of future generations to truth. And it is because of the brave testimonies of some of the very people in this room and the 56,000 plus others that we know the truth about the horrors of the Holocaust. And the USC Shoah Foundation is the keeper of these treasured eyewitness accounts. So I want to say welcome to all of you today to joining us in this historic day in the life of USC, because today we're recognizing survivors, the witnesses of the Holocaust, who have entrusted their personal testimonies to the USC Shoah Foundation, and we're recognizing them with USC's highest honor, the University Medallion. The University Medallion has only been given 3 times. It only goes to honor those who have made exceptional contributions to USC and to society and to humankind. The 56,000 testimonies from survivors of the Holocaust are one of the greatest contributions to humanity. And as I look out in this amazing room, knowing that I'm seeing survivors and families and so many people dedicated to this mission and purpose of the USC Shoah Foundation, I want to say to every single one of you how grateful we are for your selflessness to share what we know are such deeply painful memories and help by the world knowing as you recount an unimaginable terror. And we are so honored to have every one of you with us today. Your testimonies are, of course, an irreplaceable record of a dark time in history that the world must never forget. And we will never forget it. One survivor told me, "It's my duty to speak for 6 million. And I say it's our duty to ensure your voices are heard by 6 billion. The University Medallion that you can see there is a symbol of USC's lasting commitment to use these visual and oral histories to educate, to enlighten, and to shape a future without hate. 30 years ago, a remarkable person, the amazing filmmaker and USC Life trustee, Steven Spielberg, founded the Shoah Foundation with all these dreams in mind. He tells the story of being inspired by the stories that he heard when he was filming Schindler's List, and it was at that time that he began to build this remarkable collection of testimonies. His extraordinary vision to gather and record these firsthand accounts has created a gift for all of humankind. Thank you, Stephen. The courageous people, the survivors of the Shoah, believed in him and in this incredibly important mission, and they shared their pain, they shared their losses, and they are still sharing. And together, they created this irreplaceable firsthand collection of testimonies. In my opinion, this is a civilization-level chronicle of human courage that must be shared. In 2006, when Steve Sample was president, Stephen entrusted USC with this treasure, one that no other university has. And as president, I'm sure like Stephen and Max and other presidents that will come, I take that responsibility for our university very seriously. I see it as my sacred trust and the university's sacred trust. When the collection was relocated to USC from Amblin, the wonderful Kim Simon came with the collection. I know so many of you knew and loved Kim. Kim was the collection's guardian angel, and she created the USC Foundation's new identity and branding. And I know she is missed by so many of you. And I am sure from all the stories I've heard about Kim that she would absolutely have loved to be here with us today as we celebrate 30 years of the creation of this collection and this special recognition by USC. Now, as I've said, we are deeply committed to preserving and protecting these precious testimonies and disseminating them. The university's dedication has included more than $50 million in direct support and just $30 million in the last 4 years because we know how critical this moment is. And even more important are the hundreds of people who work here, who have been working here with the Shoah Foundation, out in the field, here and on the boards, who are completely dedicated to the Shoah Foundation and to building, preserving, and disseminating the collection. And I want to just give a big round of applause for all of them. You know, I think we all agree that the USC Shoah Foundation's charge is indeed the world's charge. We must make sure that the stories of the Holocaust are never forgotten, that the voices would never be silenced, and that people around the world can continue to learn and to remember. And I'd like to share a wonderful example, recent example of this work. Very recently, the Shoah Foundation, together with others at the university, took USC student athletes and a few other students to Auschwitz-Birkenau in Poland. And none of these students had been there, really understood what they were going to see. And they walked along the same paths that so many people had done for the last time before they were murdered. One student found the name of his family in the Book of Names. It is a very emotional moment for him and for his fellow students who stood looking through those names to help him find his family. They spoke about how their lives and their perspectives on the world were permanently altered because of this visit. Their hearts and their eyes opened, their minds changed. They couldn't wait to come back and teach others what they had learned. And it is such a beautiful example of why the future of the USC Shoah Foundation is one of the best hopes we have for the future of humanity. One student said it best, I get goosebumps when I remember, said, "We are all witnesses now." I felt the exact same way after I visited the Shoah Foundation during my first week as president of USC. And on that day, I knew I wanted to do everything that I could to lift the Shoah Foundation's collection to even higher levels, to strengthen its global and educational mission, and to sustain it for all time. Because I knew what you know, that the work of the foundation is needed now more than ever. We all know anti-Semitism is on the rise, and frighteningly so, and we feel the searing pain of October 7th, and we must fight anti-Semitism with everything we have. The survivors' testimonies are the best way to educate those who are ignorant about the Holocaust. And it is USC's mission to preserve and protect these eyewitness counts in perpetuity. And awarding the University Medallion is one way that we do it. It will forever be a public display of our commitment to ensuring the testimonies from the survivors will be preserved for generations to come. And it honors individuals whose testimonies are preserved in the Shoah Foundation for bringing light, enlightenment in times of darkness. What better purpose for a university? All here today understand that positive future requires great teachers and materials to use to teach so that people can learn from the events of the past. So today, as we celebrate and honor and commemorate the survivors who have given so much for us to share with future generations, we think about that solemn trust. Now, I am always so inspired when I meet all the people working at the Shoah Foundation and our survivors, and by your families and your lives. And I am then taken every time, especially by the grace, the determination, and I'm going to say the humor with which you carry every single day. So I say to all the survivors and families in this room, as well as to the 56,000 other voices living in our archives, from all of us, I take one of my favorite gestures in the world, namaste, from our heart to yours. Now, before we finish what you're starting at your plates, I'm going to show you a special video about the Shoah Foundation.
Time can be a devilish adversary, quietly eradicating memories and visibly sculpting the temptation to forget and deny. But we can search for ways to combat it. Tools that light flames meant to glow for generations to come. To seize their attention, to capture their hearts, to compel them to remember what the devil in our midst is capable of. 30 years ago, the USC Shoah Foundation embarked on a mission to find survivors of the Holocaust and record their stories, what they saw, who they lost, how they lived.
We were marching in the middle of the street, and the sidewalks were packed with people jeering. Everybody thought that, okay, we are going to be moved, but we are not going to be killed. I was one of those dehumanized human beings.
56,000 stories of survival have been captured in 65 countries in 44 languages.
People ask me, are you angry? I said, I move beyond the anger. I have no time to hate. If I would hate today, I would still be a prisoner.
The idea was to ensure their voices would never be silenced, their losses never overlooked, and their stories could live forever. But they didn't survive merely to become memories, and so the mission was always destined to evolve. Even all these decades later, there are not simply more Holocaust stories still to collect, but the testimonies, too, of the ongoing struggle against anti-Semitism that continues all today across the world. Prejudice, racism, and hatred are just as prevalent now as they have ever been.
Students need to know the Holocaust happened. Students need to know the degree to which it happened, and they need to know the profound effect the Holocaust had on future generations.
The Shoah Foundation exists for one simple reason: to create a platform so that the voices of survivors of the Holocaust can help shape and establish a better, more peaceable world for us all to live in.
The testimonies began being taken about 30 years ago, and yet here we are at a moment that we need those testimonies as much, if not more, than ever.
Putting faces, voices, and stories to this hatred remains the most powerful way to combat it all. The greatest strength of what we've recorded is how it can connect with those just on their way.
That is the rationale for this endeavor, to educate the next generations so that tolerance becomes a way of life.
Their tales will always endure. Their resilience will always resonate. Their lives will always matter. The USC Shoah Foundation. The mission has just begun.
Oof. Please enjoy lunch now. We will return to the program after dessert. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. No one wants to be the one to stop all that great conversation, which has been so beautiful, talking with people and family survivors, people who have been working at the Shoah Foundation for years. It's so special for us. We've got some of our student athletes and other students here. In fact, everyone who's a student, why don't you just raise your hands, because we're always celebrating you, too. So I hope you enjoyed your lunch, and now I think we're going to take you to the rest of the program where you'll meet and hear from some very, very special people. To begin the program, we have a wonderful performance by one of our amazing, talented student cantor, Leslie Goldberg. Leslie is a third-year cantorial student in the Debbie Friedman School of Sacred Music at Hebrew Union College, and that's the Jewish Institute of Religion. Hebrew Union College, which we refer to as HUC here, is just, as most of you know, just a few blocks away from here and has been an incredible partner to USC for over 50 years. And we just, a couple years ago, renewed our partnership for the future. And it's great to see people here and to think about that. And together, USC and HUC and the Shoah Foundation are working so hard to combat anti-Semitism. They're working hard to uplift Jewish studies and in every way to support Jewish life. Student cantor Goldberg will perform Ani Mahamin. Mahamin? Mamin. Thank you. Sorry I didn't say that right. But I know it means I believe. And that's a traditional prayer with a text that comes from the 12th century Rabbi Moses Maimonides. I'm giving up. I'd be better off if they didn't give me phonetic spelling, because I get lost trying to go from one stage to the other. 3 principles of faith. And this prayer was arranged by the late HUC faculty member, cantor Israel Alter. Now, she will be accompanied by Abby Wong. Student cantor Goldberg, will you please lead us in prayer? And thank you.
אני מאמין באמונה שלמה, אני מאמין, מאמין אני באמונה שלמה, בביאת המשיח. ואף על פי שיתממש
so beautiful, soaring to fill the entire room. Thank you so much. Now I have the great privilege of introducing someone who does not need an introduction, Steven Spielberg. Steven's career spans nearly 6 decades. He's directed over 30 films, produced over 150 film and TV projects, and I was kind of glad I got to take a picture of an iPhone for him, so photographing him. His numerous accolades, including Best Picture, Best Director, Oscars for Schindler's List, Best Director Oscar for Saving Private Ryan, 22 Academy Award nominations, and the Presidential Medal of Freedom. In 2022, he wrote and directed The Fabelmans, which is based, I think most of you know, on his childhood. He was born in Ohio, and we share that, and he was raised in New Jersey and Arizona, and he remembers being the only Jewish family in the neighborhood. Steven, too, lost family in the Holocaust. As part of filming Schindler's List, he met with survivors on the set in Poland. And one of the survivors here with us today was the youngest person on Schindler's List, and that's Selena Benias. You'll hear from her in a moment. She credits the film for encouraging her to share her story. She says, "Oskar Schindler gave me my life, but Steven Spielberg gave me my voice." Schindler's List was one of the first major Hollywood films to ever depict the horrors of the Holocaust. Filming just outside the gates of Auschwitz-Birkenau, Steven said, "I realized that had I been standing on that exact spot at a different point in time, I more than likely would have been killed too." Last year, when he accepted the Time 100 Impact Award, he spoke about the importance of sources, he calls them fanatically dedicated to the pursuit of truth. We certainly need those people. And the Shoah Foundation is one of those sources. He once told me in an early conversation that his greatest legacy isn't his films, it's the Shoah Foundation and the sacred testimonies from the Holocaust survivors. We both deeply are committed to preserving this for all humankind. And Steven, thank you so much for trusting USC with the Shoah Foundation and the survivors' story of courage and bravery. And it is really a privilege that you've given us to use them to enlighten and educate the world so we won't repeat the horrors of the Holocaust. So I'd love to ask you now to please join me to say a few words. Steven Spielberg.
Thank you very much, Carol. Thank you, everybody. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It fills me up, as my late mom Leah used to say, to be here today with you 30 years after the Shoah Foundation was founded and 20 years after the University of Southern California became our dedicated partner in this endeavor to celebrate what we have accomplished and reflect on all that we hope to still achieve. And I am so grateful to President Folt for bringing us together and for her unflagging leadership and support. Please join me in thanking her for her ongoing commitment to our mission. Thank you, Carol. Thank you. Thank you. Well, for many years, I've been incredibly fortunate to spend much of my professional life just telling stories. Stories are the foundation of history. Stories can be magical, they can be inspirational, terrifying, they can be unforgettable. And they offer a snapshot of humanity in all its beauty and its tragedy. And they are one of our strongest weapons in the fight against anti-Semitism and racial and religious hatred. The Holocaust, or as my parents called it, the Great Murders, is one of the stories I heard growing up. In my grandparents' home in Cincinnati, Ohio, where I lived until I was 3, my grandmother, Jenny, taught English to Hungarian Holocaust survivors. And during these lessons, I would often sit at the table with her, and it was there where I learned how to count, not in school, but by being taught the numbers tattooed on survivors' arms. One man rolled up his sleeve and showed me what the number 5 looked like, what the number 3 looked like. He showed me a 7. And then he said, "You want to see a trick? This is a 9, but when I go like this, now it's a 6. It's a 9, you see, Steve, and it's a 6. I was only 3, but I have never forgotten that. Years later, when I was in high school in California, I was one of a small number of Jews at that school, and I got to experience what it was like to be on the receiving end of anti-Semitism, both verbally and physically and through silent exclusion. It was a stark reminder that even though decades had passed since the Holocaust, the distance between my grandmother's table and the halls of my high school wasn't very far, and that discrimination against the Jews was not something that started or ended with World War II. In all the years leading up to and during the production of Schindler's List, immersing myself in the darkness of the Holocaust was, of course, imperative. The one thing that always punctured that darkness was when Holocaust survivors would visit us in Krakow, where we were filming. And I remember every survivor that had a story to tell me. But I also remembered that it pained me that their stories were not being documented as proof of what had been done to them and to all the Jews of Europe. By coming forward with courage to share these stories on camera, a permanent record would be preserved for the families, for history, for education, and for every future generation. This became my mission, this became our work, and this became the Shoah Foundation. And here we are 30 years later, still determined to give those voices every opportunity to be heard. These 56,000 testimonies that we have recorded are invaluable in teaching new generations what survivors have intoned for 80 years. Never again. Never again. Never again. Yet, in listening to them, the echoes of history are unmistakable in our current climate. The rise of extremist views has created a dangerous environment, and radical intolerance leads a society to no longer celebrate differences, but to instead conspire to demonize those who are different to the point of creating the other. The idea of the other is an idea that poisons discourse and creates a dangerous wedge throughout our communities. Othering rationalizes prejudice. It encourages the willful denial and distortion of reality to enforce preconceptions. Othering is the kindling that fuels extremism and illiberalism. And we see every day how the machinery of extremism is being used on college campuses, where now fully 50% of students say they have experienced some discrimination because they are Jewish. This is also happening alongside anti-Muslim, Arab, and Sikh discrimination. The creation of the other and the dehumanization of any group based on their differences are the foundations of fascism. It's an old playbook, but it's been dusted off and being widely distributed today. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. And I am increasingly alarmed that we may be condemned to repeat history, to once again have to fight for the very right to be Jewish. In the face of brutality and persecution, we have always been a resilient and compassionate people who all understand the power of empathy. We can rage against the heinous acts committed by the terrorists of October 7th, and also decry the killing of innocent women and children in Gaza. This makes us a unique force for good in the world, and is why we are here today to celebrate the work of the Shoah Foundation, which is more crucial now than it even was in 1994. It is crucial in the wake of the horrific October 7th massacre. It is crucial to the stopping of political violence caused by misinformation, conspiracy theories, and ignorance. It is crucial because stopping the rise of anti-Semitism and hate of any kind is critical to the health of our democratic republic and the future of democracy all over the civilized world. This brings me back now to our celebration of 30 years of capturing stories that this world must never forget. These 56,000 testimonies that we have recorded are a foundation upon which bridges can be built, and we here at the USC Shoah Foundation are building those bridges. And a few months ago at a gathering of survivors, an 82-year-old woman named Hannah Rychek shared what I know so many of us are wishing, that those who are currently being held hostage in Gaza should be safe and have hope that they will return home. And then she added something that I know means something to everyone here. She said, we need peace. Peace and understanding. We should respect each other. I want future generations to hear Hannah's story when they sit at their grandparents' kitchen table, as I did so many years ago, because I want them to hear the stories of courage from the past that the Shoah Foundation will continue to record. I also want them to know that we have fought against history repeating itself by celebrating Jewish survival and Jewish vitality. I want them to know that we believe in a just world for everyone and will always embrace Hannah's eternal wish for peace, understanding, and human dignity. When her wish becomes reality, we can live in a world where our essential freedoms are common across all countries, peoples, and religions. And that will be the most joyful story ever told. And now it is my great honor and privilege to introduce a survivor who has become one of the Shoah Foundation's greatest champions and treasured friend. Please welcome Ms. Selena Bennett. I always mispronounce your last name. Beniaz. Ms. Selena Beniaz. Please, come up.
It is almost impossible to follow such perfection. President Folt, thank you for inviting me here today, and thank you for all your help in recognizing the life-changing work of the USC Shoah Foundation. I recorded my testimony in 1996, and my mother did as well. Stephen, thank you so much for your vision and your actions. You have transformed the way humanity remembers the Holocaust, and you opened up a world of remembrance for me and for so many others. Welcome to our guests who are here today, especially to my fellow survivors. Today, I want to tell you about the many people to whom I owe my life. Julius Madrich was an Austrian factory owner who protected and employed my whole family during the war. Oskar Schindler saved my life by adding my name and that of my parents to the list of workers who were to be protected from the Nazi deportation. And 50 years later, you, Stephen, recorded my life by giving me back my voice. Today, I also want to tell you about someone you may not have heard of, Mater Leontine. After the war, my parents and I lived in Mindelheim, a small Bavarian town in the area occupied by Americans in post-war Germany. Mater Leontine was an 80-year-old nun who lived in a cloister right across the street from us. I met Mater Leontine in 1945 when I was 14 years old. In the previous 6 years, I had survived the Krakow ghetto, the Plaszow concentration camp, and 5 dehumanizing weeks in Auschwitz. And I was one of the lucky ones. I had been saved by Oskar Schindler, and unlike so many, I still had my parents. I had last been to school when I was 8 years old, and I was looking forward to resuming my education. But in Mindelheim, I was told I could not enroll in school because I did not speak German. I will admit, I was bitter and angry about what life had dealt me. My parents enrolled me to study English and German with Mater Leontine. This elderly German nun was one of the first adults I encountered who treated me with dignity, respect, and full acceptance. She helped me realize the corrosiveness of hatred and that the only way to move forward in life was to work through your problems. I spent 2 years studying with her. Her patience and kindness restored my self-respect and helped me conquer my feelings of anger and bitterness. For many years, I didn't tell anyone about the kindness of Mater Leontine. In fact, I didn't talk about the Holocaust at all. Even my children did not know I was a Holocaust survivor because I didn't want them to relive my early trauma. That changed after I saw Schindler's List in 1993. Stephen, you gave me my voice back. Thanks to your film and the Shoah Foundation, I was able to confront my experiences and talk about them. Thanks to you, I can tell the world about how the Nazis stole my childhood. And I can also tell the world about the kindness of a German nun. I believe the human voice speaks louder than history books. I believe that personal experiences can inspire others to value human beings. Today, we are living in a world that is shaken by tremendous divisions and horrible violence. We are seeing a frightening return of the same kind of anti-Semitism I experienced both before and after the war in Europe. We must never give in to the corrosive power of hatred, and we must always remember the power each individual has to transform the lives of others. Thank you.
Thank you both for such incredibly powerful and inspiring words for all of us here. Now I'm going to ask Stephen and Joel to please join, and I'm going to ask Selena to come back. Sorry about that. I didn't get up here quickly enough because we'd like to have you join us for the presentation of the University Medallion. As they come up, joining me is Joel, as you all know, is the chair of the USC Shoah Foundation, Joel Citron. He's the chair of our board of counselors. He too is the son of 2 Holocaust survivors. And Joel, I just want to tell you too that how grateful we are for your amazing leadership. You've been exceptional, and together with the board, really wonderful at positioning the Shoah Foundation to thrive and grow for the next 30 years. We'll all be back again in 30 years. And you've been a wonderful advisor and friend to me, and I'm so grateful for your dedication to the Institute. So thank you, Joel. Now, do you speak? Okay, so you come over here and you might stand there, and I am going to say, it is now my great honor and my privilege to present the USC University Medallion to the survivors of the Holocaust who shared your remarkable stories and testimonies with us, and most importantly, with the world for all time. And I want to thank you for your inspiration, your legacy of truth that you all share, and for being such shining examples of good over evil. And this is the same medallion right here that is worn by the president at commencement and on the most important of our occasions. So now, whenever I put it on, I'm actually going to be feeling very much that I carry your spirit with me and a memory of this beautiful, beautiful day. So as we present this, I'd love any survivors who can stand and join us as we all honor and celebrate the awarding of the USC University Medallion.
Make room for this. Wait a second.
Okay.
Here we go.
Yeah, let's do it.
Here we go. That's good. It's the money shot. Sorry, I can't stop this.
Sorry. I just say one more thing. Yep. I just want to say we hope that you'll come up and see the medallion before you leave. And we have a beautiful declaration, but I won't take you through all the whereas and why-fors, but they all mean something. And when you look at that medallion and you look ever at the USC commencement, and if you think the president is bending over, you might see this is a pretty heavy thing. So anyway, thank you. Now I'm going to turn it over to Joel. Thank you, Joel.
I'm clearly the low-tech guy here. What an incredible day. What an emotional day. It's really rendered me speechless. I want to start off by thanking the entire professional staff of the USC Shoah Foundation for what they do each and every day. I want to thank all our volunteers, and I want to thank all my fellow board members. None of this would be possible without your dedication and support. Dear Carol, thank you from the bottom of my heart for your incredible support of the USC Shoah Foundation from your very, very first days in office. Thank you for honoring the survivors with this prestigious medallion, and thank you for taking such an interest in fostering Jewish life at USC, especially during this fraught time. Your leadership has been simply exemplary, and you have our wholehearted and forever admiration. Thank you, Carol. Stephen, we would not be here today without your extraordinary initiative to record the voices and to create the Shoah Foundation, and truly give survivors a lasting, lasting voice. There are no words that could ever adequately thank you for this. Let me just say thank you anyway. Selena, you received the USC Medallion on behalf of all those who gave testimony. We owe you our gratitude, and we owe it to each survivor. You are our teachers, our beacons of resilience and hope. There are no words that could ever adequately thank you, the survivors, for this either, but I say thank you anyway. I'm really very proud to be here today. Proud to be a USC double alum, although I will tell you there's not a chance in you know what that I would ever be admitted today. And I'm proud that my parents' stories are part of the Visual History Archive. My parents survived Auschwitz-Birkenau, were liberated by the American Army in Buchenwald and a subcamp to Mauthausen, respectively. My father was 14 and my mother 13. Their survival was a miracle, unlike the 6 million Jews, including 1.5 million children, whose voices were forever silenced. My parents are veterans of the 1948-49 Israeli War of Independence. Like so many survivors, their years in Israel allowed them to reclaim their identity and their dignity. I grew up in a small town in Sweden, and as the only Jew in school, did experience anti-Semitism from time to time. But I'll tell you, this was nothing compared to what students and people at schools, universities, institutions, and on streets are encountering today. The level of Jew hatred unleashed across the globe after the massacre perpetrated by Hamas in Israel on October 7th should really alarm everyone, everywhere. The oldest bigotry has emerged with brutal force yet again. Our post-Shoah holiday from a history of more than 2,000 years of anti-Semitism has ended. The mission of and work of the Shoah Foundation is therefore more urgent than ever. We must find new pathways to use the archive. We must also focus on the anti-Semitism that has occurred throughout the world following 1945, taking testimonies to document this is paramount. Sadly, the USC Shoah Foundation have already had to take 400 from the largest murder of Jews since the Shoah. A couple of weeks ago, team and board members, along with supporters of the foundation, traveled to Israel on a solidarity mission. I left a little ahead of the delegation to spend some time with my mother. She now lives there again. During our conversations, she shared her profound pain with moisture in her eyes to express to me that at the very moment the sun is slowly setting on her and the last survivors, they all had to witness the violent invasion of the Jewish homeland and its vitriolic aftermath. But she said one thing to me, and I think that embodies all the survivors that I've met, and that is, Joel, remember what I taught you. Never, ever use the word hate, because there is no reprieve from where that takes you. So, while we have failed so far, I promised her and I pledged to you that we will work harder than ever to educate people to become more tolerant, to fight hate in all its forms, discrimination, Jew hatred, as well as the delegitimization of Israel with every fiber of our being. We understand and accept the awesome responsibility that survivors have vested in us through their testimonies, through their stories, by relentlessly pursuing a quest to make the world just a teeny, teeny, tiny little bit better every single day. I thank you all. There are people who can lead us during this time, but I will tell you that I don't know anyone who is better qualified to lead during this challenging time than our very own executive director and my friend, Dr. Robert Williams. Robert.
I'm similarly low tech, but it's just because I edit and edit and edit speeches until I come up on stage. So thank you, Joel, not just for your kind words, but in truth, the Shoah Foundation could have no finer board chair or partner as we begin our next 30 years. Your friendship, your leadership, as well as that of President Carol Folt, have both been steadfast. Indeed, the both of you are remarkable for your earnest and necessary commitment to a world that simultaneously remembers the Holocaust and rejects anti-Semitism and hatred in all their forms. Thank you as well to Stephen, also for your leadership, but especially for your vision. Your courageous efforts to capture Holocaust survivor testimonies and your drive to ensure that we became a living memorial that allows us to look to the past so that we can interrogate the present and future. It's not only inspiring, it's necessary, and it's unique. It's my humble, and I mean that truly, humble honor to just be the latest steward to this remarkable organization. But we're here to honor Holocaust survivors, to remember them, and to recall that for every survivor, there are many, many more who lost their lives during the Shoah. And today, we live in a world where there are less than 245,000 Holocaust survivors still with us to share their stories. And at an average age of 86, I'm sorry to say, to echo Joel, the sun is soon setting. 30 years ago, Stephen and his remarkable team, led by my colleague June and my colleague James, captured the first of the 50,000 testimonies. And they did it at a remarkable pace. Within 5 years, they took 50,000 testimonies. Number 50,000 just happened to be the father of my friend, Sarah Lustig, Bronco Lustig, who worked with Stephen on the making of Schindler's List. But we're also taking testimony today. In a few moments, you'll meet one of our more recent testimonies, Dr. Shaul Ladani. Shaul will be joined by our fellow Trojan, Rayanne Serval, a fourth-year 400-meter sprinter on the USC track and field team. Like Rayanne, Shaul is also a world-class athlete. He was a long-distance walker for Israel. He claimed he was too slow in the marathon. Who won a gold at the 1972 World Championships, 5 golds at the Maccabi Games, and competed in 2 Olympics, the 1968 Mexico City Games, and fatefully the 1972 Munich Olympics. But Shaul is more than his impressive record. I'll put it this way. I've been very, very lucky in my life to meet a number of childhood heroes and persons of note. Only one has their framed picture in my home library. That's Shaul Ladani. Why? Because he's also a decent, humane, intelligent, caring person. He holds multiple patents. He's published more than a dozen books, hundreds of articles. He's given back to athletics many, many times over. He's a father, a grandfather, and he did all of this while walking about 500,000 miles over the course of his life. But Shaul is also a double survivor. Born in Belgrade, he survived the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp in 1948. He and his family went to the newly formed state of Israel, where he became a world-class athlete. 2 days after he raced the 50 kilometers at the Munich Olympics in 1972, on the morning of September 5th, his roommate woke him up with urgency. Black September, a militant Palestinian organization, had broken into the dormitory and shots were fired. Shaul and his roommate were lucky to escape, but 11 Israeli athletes were murdered that day. And the anti-Semitism that he endured all too many times in his life seems to have only grown stronger again. We have a responsibility to Shaul as well as to all of the survivors who placed their trust in USC and to the USC Shoah Foundation to bring about the world that they dreamed of. That is why, in addition to taking Holocaust survivor testimonies, we are today building a massive collection on anti-Semitic violence after 1945. This will be used for scholarly and investigative journalism. It will be used to teach at the high school, the university, and beyond. And in a twist to the work that the Shoah Foundation has been doing, we will leverage our impressive tech infrastructure and our partnership with schools across USC to tackle in a much more serious and sustainable way online anti-Semitism. Shaul is part of this evolution. Last summer, he met a number of USC athletes who participated in a program that we organized on how to understand anti-Semitism and its ramifications. Rayanne, and you can feel free to join us on stage, was one of these athletes. After a few days of work here on campus, these students flew to Poland, where they visited the Memorial Museum at Auschwitz-Birkenau, but they also went to the city of Krakow, and this is the essential point. Not to reflect just on the tragedy of the Shoah, but to reflect on 1,000 years of Jewish life and culture, its ups and downs, its beauty, and how it has managed to rebuild itself time and again. At the end of the day, our work evolves, but we're remaining rooted on the model established by Stephen 30 years ago. We are a megaphone for survivors. We are a platform so that we can bring about the better world that they want. And the fact that we are doing this at a world-class research university with campuses here in Los Angeles and in Washington, D.C., means that we can reach the leaders of tomorrow while engaging with the leaders of today. No other institute, no other university can do this, and that is our duty and why we are here. And as I said, Shaul and Rayanne are part of this story. I've gone on more than long enough, and it's time to hear from them, beginning with Shaul. Thank you. Shaul, can you hear us? Yes? Do you hear us?
Yes. Yes. Thank you very much for inviting me and giving me the honor to be on your program and to be able to tell my story. And obviously, I'm doing that just for the purpose, never again. My story is long. I survived a bombing on my house in 1941 in Yugoslavia. We escaped to Hungary. In Hungary, we went to the place of birth of my mother, Novi Sad, and since it was close to the border, we went further on to the birthplace of my father, Subotica, where he was arrested twice, but my paternal grandmother managed to free him by the help of a schoolmate of my father. Therefore, we escaped to the capital of Hungary, Budapest. There, we hoped that it will be safe, but we realized a different situation. First, in 1942, my mother started to cry. Two of her sisters in Novi Sad were killed by Hungarian soldiers. That in a razzia they killed about several thousand of Jews. I remember at that time I was 6 years old. They brought to us two children, a girl of my age and a 6 months old baby. They were my cousins that their parents were massacred. Later on, my father was arrested and taken again in the framework of the forced labor for Jews to be sent to clean minefields on the Russian front without mine detectors, obviously. But because as a chemical engineer, he worked for the biggest pharmaceutical concern of Hungary, they managed to free him. Then in 1943, Eichmann entered Hungary, and my parents tried to save the children, including myself, and they tried to hide me in a monastery. For me, that was one of the biggest traumas in my life. I was 8 years old, not because they really did something wrong to me, but because I was afraid that if they find out that I am a Jew, they will kill me. Unfortunately, after a certain period, the Allies started to bomb, and my mother persuaded my father to take me out of the monastery. Then, as I returned to my parents' apartment, we were forced to go to the ghetto. And from the ghetto, finally, we were deported to Bergen-Belsen. That was really a kind of attempt to deal with the devil. The Hungarian leadership tried to make such a deal to save as much as possible Jews of Hungary. The deal failed, but anyhow, we were in Bergen-Belsen. We were in Bergen-Belsen for about 6 months until finally, in the framework of that deal, we were released to Switzerland. And then we returned to Yugoslavia to look for the remaining members of the family. About 24 members of the families were killed during the Holocaust. And in 1948, when it was possible to get out of Europe into Israel, before the British did not allow that, we emigrated to Israel, and I am very proud that I am living there and never attempted to live anywhere else. Obviously, I always have tried to excel and set various goals to achieve. I never fully finished elementary schooling. Nevertheless, I managed, after only 4.5 of elementary years of elementary schooling, to get into high school, to finish university, to get a PhD from Columbia University, and to be an academician. At the same time, I always tried also to be an athlete, and I am very happy that I succeeded in that and was the first Israeli to win a world championship, the 100-kilometer world championship, and to set a world record, the 50-mile world record, which still stands. And I hope that my story will influence youngsters to pursue both an education as well as a life of sports and to achieve as much as possible and to enjoy both activities. And for sure, what I want with my stories, which I tell at many, many other places on various occasions in Israel and also abroad, that never again. Thank you very much.
Hi, Shaul. Nice to see you again. When we spoke in the past, you mentioned that your spirit wasn't broken. How did you find the strength to go through all the experiences you have while still having such a strong spirit and a positive outlook?
I don't know really. I'm not a psychologist. Probably through the genes of my parents, I was born as an optimist, and to be an optimist was always a much better way than to be a pessimist. And I was always an optimist, and had that hope that finally the bad things will end. And finally, I realized that, and others realized that too. And I hope that optimism will be part of the Jews of the world, despite the recent wave of anti-Semitism that is unfortunately growing. But I hope that we will survive and show that we'll continue to be a model to the world.
With a moment or two, I was wondering if Rayanne might, and it's worth noting how remarkable a young woman Rayanne is. There's also, to make me feel very old, I think I played her father in soccer when we were both young, very much younger. If you could maybe just walk people through your experience on this trip, how it affected you, what you learned, and the value of the opportunity to engage with remarkable people like Shaul.
Yeah. So I was able to go to Poland through being a part of the Shoah Foundation Stronger Than Hate Leadership Summit. It actually began right here on campus, and I took part because of some strong encouragement from Dr. J. And we had the opportunity to learn what anti-Semitism was and its origins, and just understanding that hate can really be unfounded. And it's really easy to dehumanize individuals, very unfortunately. And going to Poland, Poland is so beautiful. There are the courtyards and the cobblestones and the architecture, and being able to go to synagogues and relate on a personal level, understanding that the Torah is the first 5 books in the Bible, and just being able to see the beauty of the place, but also understanding that there's so much pain in Poland, and just being aware that Jews and the memory of Jews was quite literally stepped on. We went to a graveyard, and the tombstones of Jews were taken and used as cobblestones for streets, just as if they weren't important. And being able to go to museums and seeing that Jews were slaughtered villages at a time, and going to Auschwitz-Birkenau and seeing baby clothes and personal belongings, piles of glasses and shoes and pots and pans and suitcases with people's names on them, and just walking through that, and also being told that individuals didn't know that they were going to be killed when they went to the gas chambers. They were told that they were going to take a shower, I believe, and that they would come back and get their belongings. And understanding that these individuals were used practically as slaves, but their bodies were also looted for financial gain. After they went through the gas chambers, their bodies were looted. Their gold was taken from their teeth. Their hair was cut off and used to make cloths. Their skin was used as lampshades. Their prosthetics were taken and just used in any way, shape, or form. And for me personally, I thought that I would get a really strong emotional response going into the gas chamber, understanding that this was the last time that a lot of people saw sunlight. They weren't able to exit through the gas chamber like I would have been. But there was a room. It was about this big. Imagine there's a screen halfway through. And behind that, there are bundles of hair from floor to ceiling. Each bundle was one individual. And that entire room made up less than 1% of all people massacred throughout the Holocaust. That hit me really, really heavy, to see physical remnants of an individual's body. But yeah, after going through the museum and seeing pictures of children carrying children and seeing the train tracks where parents and families were separated from each other, probably never to see each other again, we went to Auschwitz itself, and to actually walk along that path and be next to those train tracks, knowing that the too old or the too young or the sick were taken to the gas chambers a few hundred meters away and killed within moments. That was undescribable. I can tell you about it, but you can't really understand it unless you've been there for yourself. And I think for me, main takeaways are we were able to speak to different individuals, a Jewish social media influencer, a Polish Olympian, and just understanding that me as an individual, but others can use their platform to be an agent of change. And the main takeaway for me is that indifference is just as dangerous as being a perpetrator of hate or just encouraging it in a sense. Being indifferent allows hate to continue, and that's exactly what happened in the Holocaust. The entire world was indifferent. It wasn't anyone's priority to liberate the Jews. And unfortunately, things like that can happen again. And I think it's our responsibility to be able to tell those stories. And I'm a secondhand witness to the testimonies that I was able to see and the things that I was able to experience, to just share those things so that hate either to Jews or another community or anyone with a different identity, it doesn't happen again, especially on that level.
Thank you, Rayanne, and thank you as well, Shaul. What we've seen on a micro scale is really what the USC Shoah Foundation is about. The transfer of knowledge, the sharing of experiences, the creating of a new lens, if you will, so that we can begin to see the world through new eyes, through the lessons of the Holocaust. These lessons are not only applicable to understanding Europe 80 years ago. We can use this history to understand the world we live in today. And I know we've talked about how this will shape your life, and I can guarantee Rayanne's going to become an extraordinary leader in our world moving forward, like so many USC students. And it's heartening to recognize that those survivors, like Shaul and many of you in this room, who entrusted us with your memories, are continuing to reach generations 4, 5, or 6 generations after. And we appreciate your trust in us, and we thank you for being here. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rob, Rayanne, Shaul. Those were just amazing. And I loved the fact that you could hear how important, when you see something in this witness generation, they can have such an impact on the world. And so grateful for that. And we will keep doing that work. These conversations, as we all know, more important than ever. This is going to be a huge shot in the arm for every single person that cares about this work. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Joel, for your remarks. They were beautiful, too. And Rob, I just want to thank you for coming to the USC to run the Shoah Foundation. He's an amazing author. He can teach you so much. Every time I hear and learn, I learn from Rob. But thank you. And I love the vision that you're working with everyone to implement for the future, because as you can see, the future is going to be even bigger than what we've been doing in the past. So thank you for that. Now, I just want to leave you with something from Rayanne's teammates said, and this is from Samira Moody, who was a junior at USC and was also part of the Shoah Foundation program in Poland. And she said, "It's beyond respect, it's beyond tolerance. It's about truly caring for other people." So let's continue to care for each other, work for a stronger world. We know sometimes we need that extra care, especially right now, but it gives us the courage to go forward. And now I want to mention one other group that I want to thank at this moment, and that is our Board of Trustees. Stephen was on the Board of Trustees when this began, and a number of them, including our chairperson, Suzanne Nora Johnson, are here. They are a part of this and have been and will continue to be for all time. So thank you for all that you do to the Board of Trustees. Now, before we officially conclude and gather for our group photo, I want to thank the Shoah Foundation Board of Counselors, all of you who are here. They're about to go to another meeting and talk about all this, but your support and passion are really what helps us make this really happen. Stephen, Selena, Rayanne, Shaul, amazing program. I want to also thank Barbara Fedita for the incredibly poignant film and for coordinating Shoah's video appearance. So I think Barbara's here, but thank you, Barbara, for that beautiful film. And if you were listening, you might know that that was the voice of Octavia Spencer, who through Stephen's help gave her beautiful voice to our wonderful film. Another thanks to our amazing student performers, Leslie Goldberg and Abby Wong. We have a team we call the crew team that helps us get all this work done. Thank you to them and the beautiful meal. And of course, the staff of the Shoah Foundation. Thank you for sharing this special day. And I'd like to invite all the survivors and the Shoah Foundation staff to come over to the steps so that we can take a group photo. I think we're going to all cherish that. So let's get together and do that. And I just got to say, fight on. But thank you, everybody.